I forgot to tell you, we've been making some recent changes. And one of the things, come on up, one of the things that we're going to do next Sunday is a very special Sunday. It's FFA Sunday. And all of the FFA kids will be here in worship with us because Briley is the president of FFA. Then they'll go downstairs and they'll have a great big feast. But the kids are going to completely do worship. Briley's going to preach. And there will be all kinds of kids who will be involved in the service itself. We didn't have all that nailed down when the newsletter last went out. So this is new news. But you're going to look forward to next Sunday. It'll be great. Briley, I'm so proud of you and all of the kids that will be here with us. There'll be a sea of blue coats, won't there? Yeah. Going to read from Psalm 139 this morning. O Lord, you have searched me, and you know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from far away. You search out my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, O Lord, you know it completely. You hem me in, behind and before, and lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is so high that I cannot attain it. Where could I go from your spirit? Or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and settle at the farthest limits of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light around me become night, even the darkness is not dark to you, and the night is as bright as the day, for darkness is as light to you. For it was you who formed my inward parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works that I know very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. O Lord, my Lord, search me and know my heart. Test me and know my thoughts, and lead me in the everlasting way. This is the Word of God. Please be seated. In this series of messages, we are trying to focus upon different characteristics of God, and by doing so, we discover certain things about ourselves and what that says to us as believers in Jesus Christ. Rob Bell writes in one of his latest books about a certain man who was telling a personal story of his. It was a story about a whole series of events that had recently gone wrong in his life, each one seemingly worse than the one before. Well, someone was listening to this man tell his story, and he butted in and said, "But how did things end up? Did things ever get better for you?" And the man said, "Everything got better when God showed up." Recalling the man's story, Rob Bell then writes, "It was moving to hear how thrilled this guy was, but I had one of those, wait, what, moments soon afterward. If God showed up, then prior to that, was God somewhere else? And if God was somewhere else and then God came here for that person at that moment, why didn't God show up for all those other people and all of those other moments who could have used some showing up too?" Good question, isn't it? lots and lots of people who are people of faith do believe that God really is somewhere else and may or may not come from time to time to do God sorts of things. If God does come and show up, well, great. But God may not decide to show up, and if not, well, people have learned to just make do on their own. The problem with this way of thinking about God is that it makes him optional. Well, he might show up, he might not show up. He might be real, he might not be real. And it impacts our faith. Will he be there for us? Will he be there for me when I most need him? Psalm 139 is nothing short of extraordinary. I didn't read the whole psalm. There's even more to it. It is a prayer for God to examine the heart and see the true devotion of the psalmist. God who knows every thought, every deed, every word from our mouth, that God you cannot hide from. He's even been privy to your formation inside your mother's womb. Did you catch that part of it? You are fearfully and wonderfully made. There is no place where God is not present. That's what we're beginning with today. From the bottom of the ocean to the top of the tallest mountain, God is there. There is no time when you are outside of the grasp, the reach of God. There is no experience that you will ever encounter that leaves God guessing what you might need. The psalmist actually goes so far to say that even if he wanted to hide from God, even if he wanted to, he wouldn't be able to do such a thing. From conception to death, the Creator is all-knowing, ever-present, and all-powerful. God is not out there somewhere and only here sometimes. On the contrary, God is always right here. And at the same time, out there everywhere else. This is not difficult for God. It is only difficult for us to wrap our minds around this greatness of God. Do you remember the day when Moses encountered the burning bush, God's voice in the burning bush? God said to Moses, I have taken a good long look at the affliction of my people in Egypt. I've heard their cries. I've heard their cries for deliverance from their slave masters. I know their pain, and I am wanting to help them. Does that show a disinterested God? A detached God? A distant God? A disabled God who wants to help the people but just isn't able to? Heavens no. It shows just the opposite of that. This is a God who is engaged, who is ever caring, ever loving. Two people can walk by together. They can be walking together and pass by a beautiful flower. One of them notices it and is moved by its splendor. The other person walks right by the same flower but doesn't see it. Or he sees it, but he doesn't see it. He doesn't sense its smell. He doesn't discern its splendor. The proximity of the two people to the flower is the same, but they experience it differently. Likewise, we can walk right by God every day in 1,000 different ways. And some will catch a glimpse of his nearness, and others will miss out on his presence altogether. But the same God was there for both of them. He wasn't almost there, or nearly present, or in the vicinity. Some will see him, others either tune him out with apathy, or deny him with doubt, or simply miss him altogether because of things that they're thinking about in their daily schedule. But God is there for both of them. Now, in the time that remains, I'd like for us to take a look at 3 ways God can become more and more aware, that we can become more and more aware of the presence of God. When Brandon, our oldest son, graduated from law school out at Washington, D.C., Peggy and I flew out to be with him and to celebrate that occasion. We visited many places in Washington, D.C. while we were there, as many as we had time to do. And one of the places that we went to was Arlington Cemetery. And of course, we went to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. We walked among the crosses. But where we went first was the burial site of John F. Kennedy, our president. And just to the left of that is where Bobby is buried as well. When we were walking up to that burial site, there was a whole busload of teenagers coming into the cemetery right behind us. And they were being just kids. They were telling jokes and they were laughing. Some were dancing around in the street that leads you up to the burial spot. But once we got to the burial spot, someone in the crowd, and I won't tell you who, someone in the crowd turned to the kids and said lovingly, "Shh, this is history." And everyone got quiet. They all understood it, just like that. They were standing right in front of history. We've all had such moments such as that, haven't we? There are moments that usually catch us off guard. We find ourselves suddenly slowing down and becoming gripped with a certain stillness, like your heart is slamming on the brakes and whispers in your ear, "This matters. What's in front of you matters. It's important. Slow down. Pay attention." For that experience, a president of the United States is buried right in front of you. The Israelites had a word for this kind of thing. It's called the Ruach of God. That word sounds awkward. I've thought all week, how can I make that word a pleasant word? The Ruach. You can't make it a pleasant word, but it means something really special. It means the breathing presence of God. I like that. It means that whatever you're experiencing at that given moment that caused you to slow down, take note of what's right in front of you, and recognize that it's important, that it is loaded with the presence of God, that you are meant to make this discovery, to experience this given thing. It's meant for you to do that. Where can I go from your spirit, O God? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths of the ocean, you are there. When those words really grab a hold of us, it is as though we are experiencing the Ruach of God. God's divine presence is in that moment, in that discovery, in that awareness. The breathing presence of God is in such moments. It is a sacred awareness. It's not just, oh, this dress is my size. I think I'll buy it. It's more than that. It is recognizing in the stillness of slowing down that God is literally breathing this moment for you, and it becomes a sacred awareness. God is letting you in on something profound. There's not a single person in this room who has not experienced this kind of thing. The Israelites called it the Ruach of God. The ancient Jews had another word that helped them understand their awareness of God's presence. This word is kavoid. Kavoid. Now originally, kavoid was a business term. It referred to the heaviness of something, which was crucial back then in weights and measures. Over time, though, this word became less and less a business term and more of a spiritual term. It meant that the reason something was valuable in its weight of importance was because God was behind it, in favor of it, and is now meant to be a blessing for you. Kavoid is the sudden awareness that God is blessing you at this given moment. Kavoid is when your eyes are open so that you might see the importance of something, maybe something really small and really insignificant. But now suddenly you see that that small and insignificant thing is a blessing to you, and it's a God's gift to you. Something you might have seen 1,000 times before, but now you're seeing it in new light, and you're seeing it with a depth of meaning that you've missed until now. As you discover that this is meant for you, personalize it. Thank God for that given moment, that sudden awareness, because it's meant to bless you personally. It may not be a blessing for anyone else, but it's meant to be a blessing for you. Ruach means God's breathing presence in something, so slow down. Kavoid means that something is weighted with importance because it connects you at that given moment with a blessing from God. There's a third word that helped the ancient Israelites expand their awareness in the presence of God. And they actually borrowed it from the Greeks. And that is the word telos. Telos. The telos of something is its point, its purpose, where something is headed. What is it doing and why? Where is it going from here? Telos is why we watch a good movie or read a good book. When we begin looking at a movie, our mind begins to think, now where's this movie going to lead to? Where's it going to take me? I hope it takes me to a good place. I like this actor. I hope these two people find each other. I hope a good thing can happen to them along their journey. That's what a good movie does. We travel with it, don't we? And a good book can do that every bit as much as a good movie. Telos is why we watch good movies or read good books. They're loaded with potential. They're not static. They're dynamic. They're on the move. We travel with the characters. There's a story about Jesus at the dinner party. This actually happened in the last week of his life on this earth. He was reclining at the table with the other guests, and yes, the disciples were there. and a woman begins pouring perfume on his head. Remember that story? His disciples are concerned because the perfume is so expensive. Jesus, however, is thrilled that this is going on. He says about the woman, "She has done a beautiful thing to me." He then proceeds to tell the rest of the people in that room what she really has done. He says, "She has prepared me for my burial." Burial. Here's the revealing part. In Jesus' day, preparing someone for their burial was a religious act. In Jesus' eyes, this woman, what she has done, is a sacred act of worship. The disciples, particularly Judas, they missed this altogether. They missed the importance of what was going on right in front of them. Perhaps there's a good warning in that gospel story, a warning that we could all take heed of. You can be very religious. You can invoke the name of God often. You can quote chapter and verse throughout the Bible. But it doesn't mean that you can see something for what it is. See something for its value, its significance. With Jesus, what we find again and again is that it's never just a person. It is a person with a story. It is never just a meal. It is taking that food and somehow transforming it. There's always something going on beneath the surface of the ordinary events of Jesus' life. I like how the Apostle Paul writes in one of his letters. He says, "May the eyes of your heart be enlightened." I like that expression too. Jesus once said, "I have come to give life and to give it abundantly." That's telos. That's telos through and through. Abundant life is a life full of possibilities. It is rich with purpose. We know that Jesus will not be taking us in a direction that is anything but good for us. We may not know exactly where that journey will take us, any more than we know at the start of a good movie how it's going to end. But we do know that we will not be left to ourselves, that Jesus himself will be with us. Theodore Parker once said that the moral arc of the universe is long and it bends towards justice. With Jesus, we could say about telos that he takes us from where we are on a journey that bends us toward God. Sudden awareness that God is guiding you, leading you, has a purpose and plan for you, as specific as that can be. That kind of awareness is what telos is all about. It's not just a stop this moment. This is an important thing that God is helping me discover. This is not just kavod, where God is blessing you at a given moment through a sense of awareness. Telos is even more. It is this journey that you are on is intentional. It is part of God's plan. As you kneel down and clean the toilet, it is where God would have you be at that precise moment. And it can be a sacred moment if you see God's hand behind that very moment. Every one of you has a guiding God leading you in your life. Sometimes we are not easily led, are we? I think God sometimes thinks we must be a herd of cats, and he's trying to herd us in one direction, but it just doesn't always work that easy. But every one of you is being guided by an almighty, caring, loving God. It's part of his plan. And everyday things that might seem so insignificant to us, that's where God would have us be at that given moment. We might be doing the most mundane of things. We might be calling up a friend and giving them encouragement. We might not feel well, but we get out of bed and come to church anyway, hopefully, so God can inspire us and renew us. Ruach means God's breathing presence, and it can be found in small, unexpected things. So slow down when that happens and see it for the greatness that it truly is. Kavoid means that something is weighted with importance because it connects us with one of God's blessings. A minute ago, Allie came down to see me, and I couldn't help but pick her up and hold her. She's growing so fast. That was a blessing to me. To me, a little girl wanted me to hold her. Might not mean anything to anyone else in the world, but the two of us. That's kavoid. God's giving me a blessing. Telos means that beneath the even humdrum events of daily life, Jesus takes us from where we are on a journey that bends us toward God. It's not that God isn't present. It's that our awareness of that present needs a little help. And I hope that Ruach and Kavoid and Telos will provide that help.